Assalamu alaikum viewers. Today, as you may be aware, there are by-elections taking place this Thursday in Bradford on 29th of March. And as you know, DM Digital always takes a lead of taking community issues on board and involving our viewers into current affairs and issues. I have tried to invite all the candidates today to get an idea about what their vision is for Bradford West and what they have to offer. But unfortunately, not every candidate, because they are busy in their election campaign, they could not make it. But there is one candidate who is with us and who has made it, and that is a well-known journalist, broadcaster, and politician, and doesn't need no introduction. He is well known for his charity work, for his political and for his straightforwardness and raising issue. As far as the war in Iraq and Afghanistan is concerned, he was very loud, he was very clear, and he was very straightforward that this war does not benefit anyone. He is a politician who started his political career in the age of 13. And since that, his tireless effort for equality, for justice, are well known not only in Britain but in all over the world. Ladies and gentlemen, we have with us George Galloway, leader of the Respect Party, who is standing in by-election in Bradford West. Welcome, George.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa Islam. First of all, the question that I would like to ask you is what made you stand in by-elections in Bradford, George?
Well, I've always had a close association with Bradford. In fact, I bought a house there 7 years ago, 7 years before I knew there was going to be a by-election. It's in Hollings Road in Manningham. It's not the most salubrious part of the constituency. It has a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Some people say it's the ghetto.
It's in Manningham.
In Manningham. I like the ghetto because I want to help transform the ghetto into a garden. And that's why I moved there, long before there was a by-election. And I know the issues very well, especially in the Manningham area, where I have a huge well of support. And I've often thought in the more than 100 speeches I've made in Bradford over the years, more than 50 of those in the last decade since 9/11, that this would be really the perfect place for me to be the Member of Parliament in. But for nearly 25 years I was already a Member of Parliament somewhere else. And now there's a by-election and I'm not in Parliament. So Kismet, Nasib, fate, call it what you will, this vacancy and my availability have come together at the same time, and I'm hoping that people give me the opportunity to serve.
And as you may be aware, there are lots of issues, like many other cities in the UK, but Bradford is unique that I was reading somewhere that in the last 6 months, youth employment has risen threefold. And lots of people, young people under 25, are now going for job seekers allowance. So what different you will do for Bradford to ensure that all these young people, especially from BME communities, get some jobs?
Well, I'd go back just a little further than that, because Bradford has sent Labour MPs to Parliament for the best part of 100 years. Labour controls the council, and Labour presided over, under Mr Blair and Mr Brown, the 10 richest years in British history. We were never so rich as we were during those 10 years. But Bradford went backwards. The standard of living, the quality of life, the quality of the public realm and public services in the southeast of England, for example, doubled and even trebled in some places, whilst Bradford actually went backwards. So even before this Tory Liberal condemned government came to power, Bradford was losing out heavily. The mass deindustrialisation of the city, mills, factories, warehouses, all closing year after year. And this has led to a steadily increasing level of unemployment in the city. And you're right to identify the chronic problem now of youth unemployment. In the last 12 months, youth unemployment has tripled, and it has increased by 40% since January of this year, which is not even 12 weeks ago. not even 12 weeks ago, and it's 40% higher than it was at Christmas and New Year. So it's an absolutely chronic problem, and it is added to other chronic problems. One that I'm focusing on is the issue of education. Bradford's schools are 145th out of 155 in the school league table. I knew that Bradford City football team was toiling in the lower reaches of the leagues, but I had no real inclination that the schools were so shockingly bad and had produced results that placed the city 10th bottom of the league in the entire country. So here we have this paradigm of poorly educated children in failing schools being turned out onto a labour market which has turned decisively away from Bradford. And yet, Leeds, 20 minutes drive away, is a city that's booming. Even in this recession, Leeds is doing extremely well, and it's only 20 minutes away. So Bradford's been badly let down, that's my case, by the Labour Council and by the Labour parliamentarians that have represented it. And we're in a situation now where even if there was an upturn in the economy, Bradford's poor schools record does not make it an attractive enough target for inward investment. And yet the city has some phenomenal assets. Its very being, its buildings, its streets, its alleys. Little Germany I was in today, Hamstrasse, a wonderful huge boulevard. These wonderful Yorkshire stone buildings and the parks, Lister Park in particular, where I was just the other day, but other parks too. Hanover Square, where I was, an architectural jewel. These are all huge assets. And yet property prices are rock bottom in these places. We obviously have to market the city better. It's got another asset, which ought to be an asset, but is currently in danger of being a liability. Bradford, believe it or not, is the youngest city in England. It has the highest proportion of young people of any city in England. And by 2020, I hope we live to see it, but it's not that far off. By 2020, 50% of the population of Bradford will be under the age of 25. Mm-hmm. Now, if I was marketing something, I'd market that as a real asset, a real happening young place. People who want to sell things to young people should be in Bradford. People who want to make use of a young, vibrant, energetic labour force should come to Bradford. Mm-hmm. But of course, that requires the people in Bradford to have jobs and have money to spend. Otherwise, the thing becomes an industrial and a commercial desert. There's a report in the Financial Times in the last few days, commissioned by BNP Paribas, the French bank, which put Bradford number one on the retail risk index. In other words, a city centre shop in Bradford is more likely to close than any shop in any city centre anywhere in the country. That speaks volumes about the lack of purchasing power that there is in the city.
Okay, thank you. Suppose, George, luckily you are elected on Thursday, 29th. What will be your 3-point agenda of change for Bradford?
Well, the first emergency thing I'm going to do, and it's not the most important issue in the city, but it's possibly the most urgent in the sense that the building is literally falling down. The Odeon, which is an iconic landmark, together with the Alhambra next door, an iconic landmark of Bradford, has effectively been allowed to rot and ruin, and we're now being told we must pull it down because it's now unsafe to the public. Of course, the people responsible for leaving it in that state will have to answer to me if I'm the Member of Parliament, but leave that aside for a minute. We have to save the Odeon. Otherwise, we'll have a big hole in the ground. We already have a big hole in the ground where the Westfield shopping centre should have been, but it has been left literally as a big hole in the ground. If the Odeon falls down, we'll have 2 matching holes in the ground in the city centre, which will then be merely the preserve of pawn shops and pound shops and payday loan shops. Even chicken and chips in Bradford's 99p, and you get a drink thrown in.
In your street?
In my street, 99p plus a drink. I don't know what the profit can possibly be in that kind of business, and that's because people don't have money. But the Odeon, I intend to fly to the Gulf. I have 1 or 2 of the sovereign wealth funds in mind. These Arab sovereign wealth funds owe me something after more than 40 years of working for the Arab cause. I never asked them for anything for myself. I'm going to ask them for something for Bradford. I'm going to ask them to save the Odeon. And if we save it, then we must decide what we're going to do with it. I favour a cultural quarter. If the Arab sovereign wealth funds put in the money, we can have Britain's first Anglo-Arab institute, like the French Franco-Arab Institute on the banks of the Seine, which is a very beautiful resource and treasure. We can have ours in Britain, in Bradford.
Reality, you'll be bringing investment from Middle East.
Yes, I have, as you know, as you kindly alluded to in your introduction, an extremely high profile in the Arab world, in the Muslim world more generally, but in the Arab world, where the sovereign wealth funds are, in the Persian Gulf, I have people who, they don't want to make an enemy of me, let me put it that way. I have a big reach and a big platform, and I have good relations with some of these sovereign wealth fund rulers. So for the Odeon, I'm prepared to do that, as long as, in engineering terms, it can be saved. But my second priority is this schools issue. I want to know why Bradford schools are the 10th worst in the entire country. It's not for demographic reasons, because Tower Hamlets, for example, has almost exactly the same demography as Bradford. But Tower Hamlets schools are in the top 25. And Bradford schools are 145 out of 155. So I need to know why. And I promise you the Director of Education will not enjoy that meeting. If you cast your mind back to my day out in the Senate, in the US Senate, it'll be a little like that, because I'll want to know how we got here, because we need to know how we got here if we're going to know how we're going to get out of it. And my third priority will be jobs, because nothing can happen if people don't have money.
Okay, thanks for that. We're going to have a short break and we'll come back and we'll continue. Thank you very much, viewers. We'll come back after this break. Welcome back, viewers. We are talking about by-elections in Bradford West, and I'm going through some of the questions. We'll soon go to our audience and give them opportunity to ask questions. You can ring in and ask George any question that you have in your mind. My next question would be, George, that one of the main part in your campaign is you're saying we'll get rid of tuition fees.
Yes.
How would you do that?
Well, the tuition fee debacle began under New Labour, and I was one of the rebels that voted against it. I was a Labour MP at the